Hey guys, it's Shane here at Tank Gun Miniatures, and today we're talking about Iron Harvest. Now, with the announcement that Dawn of War 4 should be soon on the horizon, from all we've seen of that, it looks like it's almost complete. A lot of other creators are showing off their gameplay footage. You know, it looks pretty playable from what we've heard. Now, before they made Dawn of War 4, King Art Studios made Iron Harvest. This came out in 2020, I want to say. It was kickstarted for a couple of years. It took longer. The Kickstarter didn't go great, but I will say none of them ever do. Never trust Kickstarter at all. That being said, I did. I gave them $100 and got the perks and stuff. I got all the, the backer bonuses. They just took 2 extra years to get to me. So after 4 years of paying for something, I was able to receive it. And, it's not terrible. It's not something I needed. It's just something I would have liked. So it's not their fault. I will say that. It's probably not their fault that Kickstarter never goes to plan. Like I said, I'd like to see one that ever does. So Iron Harvest, that came from the board game Scythe. This was a great game. I played it a couple times, and I was instantly hooked. I love the aesthetic, the diesel punk, alternate history of World War One. Had a real good vibe to it, real good setting, real good design. The artwork alone is just fantastic. You look at these things, and they're amazing. So naturally, someone would make an RTS out of this whole setting. Goes without saying, everyone thought this was a good idea. And seeing how well the Kickstarter actually did, it raked in just over $1.5 million. That's pretty successful. They've already got their market. People are playing it. As you can see there on the screen, it came in, it was planned, took a couple of years. It took longer than, what we said. It had its expansions, and then it was pretty much forgotten about. Not a lot of people ended up playing or talking about it once it came out. It's very interesting for something that was just so enthused. Everyone was so on board with this at the time. Like I said, $1.5 million. That's not a small investment. So what sort of happened there? Let's look into this more. Now, if we have a look at the Steam charts, as you can see, it still has an okay player base. It only peaked at about 8,000. We have some new players coming in. I think, of course, with the whole announcement of Dawn of War 4, people are looking back into it and really playing it just to get an idea of what they have in store for them. So it didn't quite peak as much as you can see, Retribution. Retribution is a game that is currently still played thanks to its many mods. There's a pretty distinct competitive scene that still plays. Their videos still get a lot of views, and it's definitely fun to watch. I love watching the Dawn of War 2 multiplayer matches. Really interesting, and that's where I think Iron Harvest sort of didn't quite go into it. It definitely should have. It could have almost been like an esport type thing. It's hard to replicate, something like StarCraft 2 or League of Legends, that sort of viewer base. But still, it could have done a bit better, I think. And as you can see with the Dawn of War Definitive Edition, that's come back, and that just came out, and that has smashed both of these for a game that is, well, I guess not new in a sense, but it's 18,000 peak. And it really came out with sort of no hype. It just came out of nowhere, but everyone wanted to play it. It got straight back in and just got where we wanted to be playing an RTS again. So why was Iron Harvest never quite as popular as these Dawn of War games? So gameplay wise, very similar to how Dawn of War is. You've got your hero units that have special abilities and that sort of stand out from the rest of the units. And then you've got your normal infantry, and then you work your way up to either mechanized infantry, depending the faction, or just your mechs. So it's a simple enough progression. You have your small units that don't do much damage to start off with, and you build your way up. You can sort of rush and try and get the enemy off guard, or you can sort of try and protect yourself and build yourself up. The problem is it doesn't come off as a real defensive type game. When you're playing it, especially against computer or multiplayer, it's very rush. You have to micro things, you have to always be running, grabbing objectives before the enemy does. It's a very micro intensive game. It's not something like in Warcraft where you can sort of base build, set things up. To an extent, Age of Empires. Age of Empires can get very rush heavy as well. But for the most part, it is a strategic sort of rush game. You always got to be blitzing, always got to be moving. So it's not something you can sort of just sit by, let the enemy come to you in a way. There's no real turtling in this game. So for that reason, it sort of only has one sort of play style. The whole base building side of it, I feel is kind of pointless. There's only two real buildings you have. One's a barracks, one's a workshop for creating, infantry or mechs. So, much like in Retribution, it definitely would have been better for this game if you just had one headquarters. And then you could just use your engineers to build the defensive stuff. Build the walls, build the, the guns and such. I felt it was a mistake having just a very loose base building system. You had it, but there was only so much you could do. It was extremely limited in how you actually base build. So it doesn't sort of feel like Dawn of War 1. It's more like Dawn of War 2, but not in a great way. So, yeah. The other problems I had was the AI tends to be very flighty. Most times they won't stand and engage with you. They'll just sort of run. In the campaign, it's sort of fine because they have their set pathing and everything. When you're playing against a skirmishing enemy, they'll generally, run. And because there's no way to sentry your units, like I would love them to just stand, shoot, or, go for the closest enemies. They won't do that. Your army, every time you hit the attack option, will automatically keep fighting until the unit's dead, even if it's retreating back. So if your micro is off, for just a few seconds, your unit can just run straight into enemy territory just because, it's trying to hunt down an enemy you told it to attack. So that's not a great mechanic. There's no real patrol option either, which would be really handy. So it does feel semi-optimized. Another point I have to make is that everything feels very samey the more you replay it. As in, you don't have a lot of options to pick from. You've got your basic infantry, like I said, your riflemen, but then of course you've got your anti-armor guys and your flamethrowers, but every faction pretty much gets the same units. It's not like any faction has a uniqueness to it. So if you're playing to get some sort of, variety in difference of the factions, you're not really going to find it. Every army plays pretty much the same. For the most part. Nothing really specializes in a unique way. It's more like if you played Dune 2. You basically had the same unit roster, but they don't actually tell you that Harkonnen have more health but are slower, Ordos have, faster units but they're a little weak. Like, it's very subtle, the differences. You won't really notice it. I feel it's a lost opportunity there. Yeah, I guess it's good in a competitive sense and are good for new players. You won't get shocked, you won't get out of line, you'll know how things work for the most part. Now, if you weren't a fan of the story campaign, there is the world map campaign system where it's pretty much, like I said, with Dune 2 again, you have the map and you've just got to spread out, kind of like playing Risk or whatever. That standard, domination mode. I like that you have the option of playing this sort of way, but it does get a bit repetitive after a while, much like sort of Soulstorm did. It's, yeah, not a huge amount of challenge to it. You're just, sort of replaying the same type of game. Because like I said, it's pretty much everyone sort of acts the same. Nothing has like a unique style. You don't have to watch out for, oh, this guy has more tanks or this guy has more elite infantry. You're basically going to be fighting the same sort of army over and over again. So while it is fun that they have it there, it's just that I think the story mode has a lot more interesting stuff happening in it, because a lot of unique ways to win the game will be present in it. But it's good the option is there. Definitely good. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like multiplayer is very present in the game anymore. I tried looking for a match for about 15 minutes. I went and I did my laundry in that time. I, dressed my bed, got things out of the dryer. If you have to ask yourself, do I need to wash my bed sheets? The answer is generally yes. Yes, you do need to be washing them. But anyway, we were looking for a while. We couldn't find an opponent. From what I hear from the Steam discussions, there isn't a lot of good matchmaking going on. And most other people who've been playing for a long time have already sort of figured out the meta. So it's very hard for a new person to come in and sort of figure out how they're going to be playing. There's a lot of sort of unbalance there from what I was reading from most of the comments. Now, as of the time of recording this, the Steam reviews are mostly positive as a whole, but recent ones are mixed. I think we see an influx of new players or returning players having a relook at this game to see what they can sort of expect for Dawn of War 4. And of course, it is, I wouldn't say out of date, the playstyle, but there's just a whole lot more options now that have come out since this game. Because yeah, I guess it is 5 years old now. We've had a lot of resurgence of, remasters, like Age of Empires and other stuff. So it really shows this didn't exactly hit the mark. I think we did lose out on a lot of opportunity. It had a great opportunity to be a lot bigger. I think it needed more uniqueness when it came to each faction. There needed to be a bigger roster with more unique stuff going on. It just felt like almost like it was incomplete in a sense, and they definitely should have reworked a lot of how the game actually played out. Like I said, base building probably just needed to be removed. You probably just needed one headquarters. You didn't need like extra buildings just for the sake of having them. This isn't an RTS where, base building is very important. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Dawn of War comes out. It seems like they have learnt a lot from making this game. The base building, I know, is going to be very different to the Dawn of War 1. And there is no building units. It's just, you just place down the buildings much like, say, Command and Conquer. And I think that's going to be a lot more fitting. Whilst in this game, yeah, it is pretty much just ramp up, get the biggest mechs, try and, rush your opponent as fast as you can. It is very much a tank rush game in that sense. And I think everything else around it is what's holding it back. So as long as they can acknowledge that for Dawn of War 4, I think we're going to be okay. So the quick summary is, it's a game that looks great. It's got a really unique identity. It's definitely got a great flavor to it. However, it falls down in a lot of areas. I feel it was trying to do too much in too small of a scope. And it's interesting because I feel like you could have had like these giant battles going on, with a lot of stuff coming out, but it just couldn't quite decide. Is this like Company of Heroes or Dawn of War 2, where you've got these smaller units trying to, cap certain objectives? Or is this something where you're just spamming out units? It's trying to be somewhere in between, and it really just needed to be one or the other. So, would I recommend playing it? Definitely give it a shot. Maybe wait till it's on sale. You know, this game isn't going to be for everyone, like I said. It is very different to most other RTSs, so you got to keep that in mind. The AI on it is not great. There's a lot of pathing issues I found. So yeah, but you know, it's hard. It's hard to do. No one's perfect. So overall, I like it. I still like the game for all its faults. And definitely, you know, I think a lot of people could as well. But I think it's good that it did have these sort of issues. So now they're able to learn from it and they can make a new, better game in future. But that's still yet to see. But, you know, fingers crossed, everyone. Fingers crossed. Like I said, I would have liked to be able to play a multiplayer game, but I might just have to go watch them instead. I mean, that's the thing. I think this is one of the games that it's sort of more fun to watch being played than it is actually playing yourself. And that's probably not what game creators it's not what they really want. They want people engaging, they want the player numbers up. It doesn't matter if everyone knows the game and has seen the game, they need people experiencing it firsthand, and then people will be buying it and they'll get money. So that makes sense. But yeah, that's just a short review for this, and just to get an idea of, you know, the future, what's coming out, what we can see from this company. If after you've played this game and you've lost faith, you know, I couldn't blame you, but, you know, I'd definitely say give it a try. Alright, thanks guys for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.